Hey folks, hope you're all doing extraordinarily well today. It is indeed time to get started with with another day. In these treacherous markets, they'll chew you up and spit you out. That's for sure, folks. All right, got to be mentally strong is not even a word for this, right? All right, so let's make sure you read through the disclaimer, this of course being for educational purposes only. So I've left that up there for quite some time, as always. Like I said, just make sure you read through it in its entirety. We're here to help to the best of our ability, but you want to understand the context in which we do that, okay? All right, excellent. So that'll be there, and then we can go ahead and get out to the charts. Let's see. Okay, and all right, so we should have that up now. Let me see here. Let me just clear off my other monitor. Okay, very good. All right. Yeah, so I think we're okay. All right, there we go. So this is just so the euro is just I put it up basically because there was the question from yesterday. You know, we were talking about essentially the question was posed. You know, would we you know, as far as selling, is it a valid setup on the euro and so on and so forth. So we'll cover that really quick. This is just what we talked about yesterday. So I just want to go over these things as always. We rinse and repeat, recap, seeing is believing, as I always say, et cetera, you know. So you just got to do this stuff over and over and over again until the metaphorical cows come home, right? Anywho. All right, so the euro did, it's a good time to address it actually, because right now, if we go back, please remember what I said about the euro, right? So remember, the euro it's had an extreme downtrend, and then we got the entry signal on the long side. That was a couple days ago, and then yesterday about the question being posed, you know, would we take a short here? So objectively, right, what we said was yes, if shorter term, okay. So anyway, just wanted to put that out there, but I also want to readdress it right now because I mean this is actually, like I said, a very good time. So if we go back over here, the entry took place up in our zone there, and then it took place in the zone, but that wasn't the execution. We went down in time frame. We talked about this over here. I actually drew it for you. I did it like this, and I said, yeah, absolutely, okay. And then basically we had a picture, to wait for. So if you go up here, right, you kind of look at something like this. You can see where the entry came in, okay, so right up through here, and then stop was initially above the structure, and we've had a pretty substantial decline. So the reason that I say that this is a good time to rediscuss this position, and we're going to get to the software in just a moment, by the way. So I know today is going to be software training in regards to multiple time frame zones, but I just wanted to address this real quick. So for all intents and purposes on the euro, let's look at where we are right now. And if you go over here, because remember, being this was a short term rather from the beginning, right, we have a choice to make. And if you look at where we are right now, all the confluence measures, etc., we can measure from our fibs. So if I grab my fib zone and I pull from the origin of structure number 1 to the end of said move, okay, you can see how we've retraced back that 38.2 to 61.8%. That in and of itself tells me that that's likely going to find support, as that's where the fib traders are generally going to be. Not only fib traders, though. Remember, that's just one style of trading, right? So in addition to that, who else do we have? Well, we're also going to have the trend line traders, okay? So we got to then contend with the smaller time frame, trend traders, and so on and so forth. So again, all this stuff, when we talk about it being self-fulfilling, as I always say, it's self-fulfilling because we make it that way, It's just what it is. So right now, as price is reverting back to this, it's going to find support around that 99.5, let's call it 99.50. And again, you can say, well, that's easy to say now, but I would laugh at that, just not in a sarcastic way, just laugh at it, because you all know everything we do, right? We hold back nothing. You know exactly why this should happen, so I would prefer that someone else give me a reason. In other words, to prove to myself that you know what I'm going to say, right, then why don't you answer the question for me? So in other words, guys and gals, give me a reason that we would find support here other than Fibonacci analysis. Just look at the picture that you see right there. What's the reason? So we're looking for support. Yeah, okay, so right, that would show us that that it's already happening. Correct. Yes, the shift of momentum and all that. But what I'm saying is, like, before any of that happens, yeah, okay, so you have the demand zone below. What else? Give me the confluence measures. And remember what I always say, the most basic information of all is most often there you go. All right, very good. There it comes. All right, yes sir. It has all to do with that trend, doesn't it? You're going to have the support line, trend channel, all of the above. Exactly. Very good. So several comments were coming in simultaneously there, all of which saying pretty much the same thing. That's right. So right now, I like it. You guys are using the emojis and all that stuff. Very cool. So anyone can do that. You all know how to do that, I think. But if you don't, it's down in the bottom of it should be in the bottom of your screen with the reactions. It should say reactions, a little thumb up thing. Okay. So yeah, right now is an excellent time. Remember, initially this was anticipated to be a short-term trade anyway. So what we could do is go ahead and hit the profit target, even as like right now. This is an excellent time to hit the profit target. At minimum, let me say that again, at minimum, I hope I can be very clear, I would want to protect my hypothetical investment, right? All right, very good. So again, what type of trader am I? Am I the intraday or even the overnight kind of swing trader or whatnot, short-term swing? But if I, don't think, let me tell you this. Don't think for a second that this thing can't turn straight back up. Why? Look over here. You're missing the bigger picture. Okay? What have I said from the beginning? I'd rather be the buyer. Okay? So why is this a good question? Why is this a short term when daily is in sell area? Okay. Let me do this. Let me do this for you real quick. What's the most basic principle that we use? What's the most basic principle of any investing? Any investing. Yeah, it does have to do with location, absolutely, but there you go. All right, very good. Thank you for the comments and everything coming in. That's right. Buy low, sell high. Right? When you look at this chart, what do you see? So I know that's challenging. Excuse me. Because this is the mentality that I try to get people away from. Okay, remember how I tell you that automation, right? Everyone wants automation. They want automation. They want this fixed little two-stop. I'm exaggerating or really emphasizing rather, because this is a common one. But a lot of people, as I've told you, they say, you know what? I just need 2 points a day. That's it. All I need is 2 points a day. I can up my contracts, I can da-da-da-da-da, but all I need, and that's it, that's all I'm asking of the market, If it were that easy, every person in the world would be doing this, okay? It would be the easiest thing ever. It just doesn't work that way. It's never going to. The markets are dynamic, and I am telling you this, mark my words on this. The older we get, okay, but, more time passes, however you want to say that, it's going to get worse. Why is that? As specifically the index, the U.S. index market, so we're at the S&P, as it goes up, what happens? Obviously, the value increases, ergo, the volatility increases. It's not decreasing, folks. It's increasing. So what I may have been able to execute a 2-point stop with years ago, oh no. That's laughable to the market now, right? So it's looking at us and it's laughing and it's saying, yeah, okay, good luck with that. We gave you that opportunity, 10, 15 years ago, but today, not so much. Now, that's not, you understand I'm halfway joking about, I'm not joking about the dynamic and the volatility and all that, but there are people out there who, maybe they found the way, the magic kingdom, and they found the way to use a 2-point stop on every trade, and it's just magical. But I just want to see, that strategy work over 5 years, and if you can do it, let me know, please. I'd love to have some conversations with you, because obviously you're very good at what you do, and you've been able to outperform pretty much everyone in the world. By that I mean, like 98% of them. Maybe 99% of them. Anyway, all right, so all with that, all the joking aside and so on and so forth, I really do want to just keep this as simple as possible. But we don't want to look at the market and think that we're going to be able to trade it the same today as we were, back when probably a lot of us started doing this. It just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Okay. All right. So yeah, with this one, I love the question. Thank you so much. And probably if I go up in time frame, it's going to reach out and smack you. Right? Let's do that real quick. Give it just a moment here. I'll load some monthly data. I haven't loaded monthly data in a while. Come on, you got it. You got this data feed. There we go. All right. So now when I do it like this, does it clarify that for you? You know what I'm saying? So when you look at and granted, again, just give me a moment. Like, everybody be very patient. No one's being impatient, by the way. But I'm just letting you know, I'm getting straight out to the software in just a moment. We are going to look at those multiple time frame zones. It's going to be the, complete, it's going to be the entirety of today's session with this exception here. But I do find it important when I have analysis to display that, yes? Okay, so when you look at it like this, you execute exactly step by step what we do every day, right? Remember, in other words, play the buy, sell, nothing game and ask yourself where you are right now. Buy, sell, or nothing, right? And then we can filter that down into the smaller time frames, and that's why I was trying to tell you that daily, that daily presented RBR by the PFAZoneSuite was that's where I was going with that, right? So that was from, we talked about that a couple weeks in advance or something, but the point is, yeah, buy low, sell high, very basic concept. This is a monthly chart of the euro, and I am telling you, the euro less than the dollar that's it doesn't happen. That hasn't happened in forever, and I just wanted, I just really want people paying attention to the euro, because that's, let me tell you, the euro is not going to stay down. Have you ever known the euro to stay down? It's Europe, right? Think about it. I mean, I would say, I think it's pretty safe to say that they have a little bit more history than the U.S., right? A little bit more, maybe? Yeah, a little bit. But anyway, yeah, so we don't want to, just look at the same. I never want to bet against the U.S., right? I mean, I'm sure I'm shorting the markets and all that stuff for sure, but that doesn't mean that I want to bet against the U.S. long term. You know what I'm saying? It's not something that I want to do. Absolutely, you know this. We talk about it all the time. All right. Anywho, let's go ahead and thank you again for the question. Very good. So the further that this thing drops down, and the closer we get to that demand level, the closer we're getting, and you're basically touching the support already. You're already in the fib area, right? So now specificity starts to kick in. The only question is, are we going to get there, right? Are we going to get down there? I don't know. There's no way for me to, to predict that. So I don't try to. I just say, no, okay, this is a great time. So again, at minimum, you can see it over here. There's my it's break even plus commissions, yes? And what I could do if I wanted to is just start trailing this thing. So again, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing this. I literally could just take a profit target right now. You all understand why I do it this way. So my personality is to give this thing the freedom to run, so to speak, right? I like to do that just because I like to attempt to take the bigger trades in the market as opposed to very short-term scalp trades and things, because I personally there's a bunch of different reasons I could give you, but let me give you this one. I'm not that good at it, right? Well, maybe I'm better now. I mean, you all see the scalp trades that I've done in the room. I know we all know that's pretty good. But the point is, in my history, my experience with it is I'm much more experienced, than I was, say, 10, 15 years ago, and so on and so forth. But but my experience with it initially was not ideal, right? And so I gravitated away from it. Well, then I evolved and realized I just didn't need to do it. I did better when I didn't do it, and so it just made more sense to me. Now, as I go back to it, it's actually been, I don't even remember these days. It's been a long time. I've been doing this for so long. But now as I go back to it, sure, I understand. I can conceptualize many different things now. And that's why you all see the scalp trades. Most of them, what have we been doing it now for, a couple months just for training purposes and all that. But you've seen, I think we've only had a couple that have gone against us and everything. So that's great, but that's only because I've been able to simplify it over the years. Had I have known everything that I know now back, 15 years ago, well, okay, that actually is a little bit longer. But anyway, so maybe I would have made it at that, but I'm not going to go backwards in time and try, because I now know I evolved so much I know I don't need to. All right? Very good. So let's get off the euro, because I don't want to mess with that and stuff like that. So we can go to the S&P, and if you notice, the S&P is doing exactly what we talked about yesterday. Okay? So please remember that. Excuse me, let me get rid of this. Please remember that, and please remember what we said about the S&P, and if I got that return, you know exactly how I would go about entering into this market. All right? But let's get started directly with the software. We can come back and look at this in a bit. And again, if you remember, we talked yesterday about this specific number, this exact scenario. I think I drew it out and everything to that extent. So we'll see. Okay? We'll see if that pans out. want to do this on the, yeah, let's do it on the larger time frame maybe. Okay. Let me get rid of this. Let me kind of clean up the chart, right? So this is a weekly chart, as you can see here. Now, when you put the PFAZoneSuite on your chart, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Let me just get to a question real quick. I'm not going to spend much time on analysis if that is what the question is referring to, but other than that, absolutely. So, wondering your thought on the SP currently. We're getting a pullback. Yeah, so that the thing is, I really want to focus on the software today, and that whole thing we covered yesterday. So that, you know, anyone and everyone that was in the room yesterday, they already know exactly what I'm looking for on the S&P today because we talked about it a day in advance. So let's not spend too much time on that. The trade, everyone's already aware of what I'm looking for that. But if I have some time, we can circle back to it. I otherwise know that I'll spend too much time on that and won't get focused on the software. So let's do that if you don't mind. Oh, it's no worries. Well, yeah, jump in there, man. We'll get you in there. Just let me know. I mean, we'd love to have you and all that stuff. In the I didn't realize, but I thought you were, but now I recall. That's okay. All right. So look, when you all put the PFAZoneSuite on your chart, we, as you know, provide, if you will, a default template. Okay. So the default template, I'm just going to reset it. So this is what it's going to look like on your chart right out of the box, so to speak. Okay, and all this is in the documentation, you know, all that. But the purpose here is to get your visuals, to learn, to see perhaps how we use some of it, you know, things to that extent. There's a lot going on here. And you know, it's pretty ideal to understand it. That doesn't mean we're going to be covering all trading methodology and this and that. I mean, ultimately, I don't have time to do that, and the software all in one session. You know, so I have to kind of break them apart and do this and do that, and hopefully, it's most beneficial. So tomorrow, of course, we'll be back at methodology and analysis. Today, we're going to be looking specifically at the software. And more specifically, the multiple time frame zones. So this may seem simple to a lot of folks. It is simple. I mean, it's simple because that's all we try to do is simple stuff, yeah? But I can't even tell you the amount of folks who, you know, will put this on their chart and then they're like, wow, yep, it's simple, so you have to, so then they can remove, you know, pretty much everything. As you see, these are the charts that we've always used. You all know this, and this is it. I take that back. There's on the on the charts over here. You can see that there's two indicators in addition to the ZoneSuite, but they're just NinjaTrader. They come with the platform. They're free. They don't, you know, it's what it is. One of them is just that price line. I could take it or leave it. Don't really care. You know, I leave it on there just because it does make it easier for me. Like if I want to travel back in time, I can go, okay, where are we trading right now? Oh, there we go. There's my price line, you know. So I like that one. It's a nice, like I said, it's called price line. It's in your NinjaTrader indicators right there, okay, price line. So if you scroll down, you're going to see it right there. Okay, so there's your price line. The other one that we have on this chart is the bar timer. None of this is really relevant for what we're going to talk about today, by the way. The bar timer I find useful, but it's only useful for me on, well, it doesn't even work on like your daily bars and such. But you see this little timer down here in the bottom right? So it says time remaining, 35:02, whatnot. So that's the amount of time remaining in the current bar, right? The one that's currently dropping. In 34 minutes and roughly 50 seconds, a new bar is going to form. It's just measuring the amount of time. So again, very basic. I do keep those, but you don't even see them other than you know, the tiny little thing down here. Now, if you're wondering how I added that down here, if you go into your indicators and you click on any of them, you can do this. But so the bar timer right over here, you see where it says panel, okay? So when you initially put this on, it's going to be the same as your input series, okay? And then there's a little, it won't say 1, 2. I believe it says same as input, and then it might say 1 or whatever, but it says custom, or I think it, or add or something like that. Let's do this. New panel, I'm sorry. So it'll say new panel, right? So we already have the panel 1 and 2. That's basically your chart, and then this down here below that black line, that's panel number 2. So I could create a new panel, and then this, whatever that is, a rune, I've never even heard of it, but it would go below this. It would create another panel. So that's how that, that's how I got it separate. You see how I can do this right here? So I could, make that as large or as small as I want to. That's how I did it. Okay? Just always try to let you know that. Very good. But yes, to simplify it though, that's all I have. It's just the PFAZoneSuite, and then those little couple of items that I find to be beneficial. But as you can see here, they're not on the larger time frame charts because, as I said, you need intraday bars. It doesn't measure the amount of time in your daily, weekly, etc. Okay, so back to the template. It's going to come right out of the box as such. I personally use this every day. I mean, this is basically what you see on every chart. Here is the default template, right? I don't really need to make changes to it. The only change I suppose I would make sometimes would be obviously I can change accounts, something like that. For example, we go in here into our order inputs, so I can make alterations to, if I want to put, obviously, the accounts and whatnot, but, we keep it on sim here, okay? All right, now the thing that I want to talk about today is multiple time frame zones. So as I'm on a weekly chart, we have the paired time frames, right? Since I'm on a weekly, we'll just stick with that. So the weekly, we want to pair with the 4-hour time frame. And I could go down. I mean, I don't want to go too far back. I suppose, let me see how many days I have loaded here. So let's just do like 1,000 days, right? See how far that goes. But yeah, that's better. All right, so we'll simplify it. Now, with the paired time frames, I can do this 2 ways. And I do find it's ironic, but I do find it beneficial to do it both ways. I will explain, don't worry. For instance, number 1, we can go top down, right? So what does that mean? I can see the weekly zones here, but I would like to see the smaller time frame zones as well. Now, the reason that I like to do it like this is because it simplifies my emotional state of mind in big time. So when I look at this weekly chart, it is clean. Is relatively clean. When I go over here and I look at this chart, that doesn't feel very clean. And on this chart, by the way, I only have 200 days loaded. So if I were to go here and load 1,000 days, oh man, that starts to be very messy. You know what I mean? A lot of movement in here. And so, it's good because sometimes we can, if we can filter through the noise, there's a lot of things we can accommodate on this time frame. So I'll come back to that. But as I said, I want to simplify it, especially when it comes to my emotions and my ability or lack thereof to make highly educated decisions. As you know, that's uber important, probably the most important thing that we could ever possibly do in pretty much every aspect of our life. So to simplify, to give myself the less emotional state of play, I can do that from here. Now, the reason I'm showing you the default template, first and foremost, is because I want you to understand how I'm going to make this change. It's very simple. It's not rocket science or anything. We just need to alter a setting. Okay? But I do want you to be aware of it so that when you get the ZoneSuite on your chart, you're going to, boom, you instantly know how to accommodate what we're going to be doing today. So what I want to do is I want to implement my paired time frames, but I want to do it on said chart, right? And I'm going to show you some bells and whistles within that as well. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to left click our, this is our custom user interface, of course, as you all know. So I'm going to go down here. You can see where we have primary and secondary zones. All right, I'm going to left click secondary zones, but currently they're disabled. And that's why we're not, that's why we don't see any of them on the chart or anything to that extent. We've got to go enable them, right? So if I left click and add that little check mark there, I've enabled them. But if I click apply right now, what am I going to have? Well, I'm going to have weekly zones, right? So ultimately I'm going to be doubling what I already have on the chart. And I don't need that. That's not going to do me very much good at all. So I need to put that secondary time frame on there. In our case, as I mentioned, the paired is the 4 hour. So I can go minute and then give it a value. So let's go back for just a sec, because this can be a little bit confusing. When we have weekly here, I could give it a different value, but I doubt, I could be wrong. I'm not trying to, I'm not saying you do or don't do anything. I don't know what you may or may not want to do, but I've not come across many people that look at 2 weekly chart. You know what I mean? For the most part, when you think of a weekly chart, I think pretty much everyone, at least the majority, thinks of a single week. Every bar is equivalent of a week's worth of trading. But again, if you wanted to make this 2-week bars, you can do that too, I suppose. Yeah? All right. So when you're talking about day, week, month, these 3 specifically, it's just 1. I always just leave it at 1 because that's going to give me daily zones, weekly zones, and or monthly zones. Okay? All right. But when I go down to any of the others, like for example, in this case, I want to see 4-hour zones. Well, that's what I need to tell it to do, right? So I need to input a value of 240. As you know, 240 minute is the equivalent of what we refer to as 4-hour zones. We could just say 240 minute, but I guess it's a little bit more lengthy or something. I don't know why we don't do that. Anywho, all right, 4-hour zones, and all I now need to do is apply that. You can see that there's a bunch of settings here. We can talk about these if you like, but we can also do it directly from the user menu up here once we get it onto the chart. For example, you can show different types of zones, historical, remove them, show and hide zones, show and hide price labels, the buttons on the zones, resize the zones, and so on and so forth. There's a lot. Change all the colors. You know how this works, right? Super customizable. All the volume information. This is going to be your value area, value ratio, so on, okay? All right, so let's go ahead and just apply, because that's not what we're here to talk about today. I'm going to click apply, left click apply template, okay? And then I'm just going to sit back and give it a moment. So we see something very different now, right? Wow, whew, that looks very different. Okay, so what we've done is exactly what I said, but I want to bring note to the menu, okay? So now we have primary zone menu, which is in parentheses as default, right? Default, of course, means the time frame of your chart. But I also have secondary zone menu in parentheses 4-hour chart or 240 minute, okay? So that just tells me what, if I want to control something, okay, how am I going to do it? Like in other words, if I want to control these smaller time frame zones, where do I go to do that? I have to go to my secondary menu, and again, if I just hover my mouse there, you can see what that is. So then I go to active zones. As you can see, I can clean that chart right back up if I desire that. I could show only the demand. If I'm in an uptrend, for all intents and purposes, maybe that's exactly what I want to do. Conversely, if I'm in a downtrend, maybe I only want to show the opposite, right? Maybe I only want to show supply zones. Something to this extent, all right? So all the bells and whistles, let's circle back to that at another time. I still look at the chart and I think to myself, okay, well, maybe it's a little messy. Maybe I'm that trader that says, you know what, I only want to take attempt to take the turning points. In other words, I want to try to capture it from the beginning of the move, okay? Same up here. at the true what ends up being the reversals. Okay, that's exactly how we do it. It's not not magic sauce or anything. I'm not saying that we can always catch the literal tipping point, but as you know, based on the way that we do things, that's generally where we enter the market. So it would be here, there we took some shorts, here we took some shorts. Actually, I think right in through here we took shorts, here, again up here. And if memory serves me correctly, they were here, we stopped down here. Okay, so there was just the buy. Was it yesterday? Yeah, so that was yesterday. I think it might have actually happened in the overnight or pre-market, but it doesn't really matter because the order would have just been sitting there. So anyway, so it can be done, right? It's not, again, it's not magic. It's actually pretty simple using the basic information, not complexities. So let's walk through a couple of scenarios here that would be of, in my opinion, grave use. Okay. Let's say that I'm a larger time frame trader and I'm looking for swing and position style trading. That is defined, swing being overnight to a month, position being defined as month to a year, long term being defined as anything over a year. Okay, so if that is my style, then I need to come to this particular time frame, because remember we're pairing them. So I'd be looking for swing and position style trading here on the weekly chart. This is where I want to gather my analysis. It gives me a big enough time frame to not get so wrapped up in the internal noise that I'm going to see every day, it's daunting, right? It can torture you if you let it. So with this, I can do something like this. So let's go for just a moment and let's turn these off. Clean up the chart. In fact, let's go turn these off too, because the first piece of information that I can grab is my direction. If I know my direction, I ultimately know what I would prefer to be doing, buying or selling, right? And then all the other parts of our analysis, such as the buy, sell, nothing game, and then we can determine if there's any opposing levels to stop us, things to that extent. But let's just say that no, there's nothing to stop us from going lower, and that's exactly what I want to do. So now we want to get to our sell territory first and foremost, and then I want to just execute trades in accordance with the larger time frame direction. So here we have a weekly downtrend, right? And what I would be doing here is, you guys are going to have to pause with me for just one moment. If I have to I may need to take a brief pause in a moment. We shall see. Yeah, I'll have to circle back to it. That's okay. All right, weekly zones, right? So I'm in a downtrend. So I'm going to go to my weekly zones. I'm just going to turn on my supply, okay? Because I want to be acutely aware of where the predominant selling has occurred inside of this downtrend, right? Now, the second thing that I want to be aware of is, where are the buyers, right? Because if I'm selling, I certainly don't want to be selling into the bigger picture buyers, right? So now I go up here and I say, oh, okay, well, just show me both then. All right, well, that tells me, I got a pretty good ways to run to the downside. No worries, no problems there. So now I start to go, okay, well, how do I get from point A to point B, if you will? In other words, anywhere in the downtrend down to the lower, picture demand, right? How do I get there? Well, I get there by selling supply on the way down. So where supply comes in is actually not after it moves down, it's moves up. So I want to wait for price to move up and then execute in accordance with the overall downtrend, right? In other words, pull back up to supply, sell to go lower. Simple. Sounds simple, right? It's not easy. Simple is very different from being easy, wouldn't you say? So at least I would. All right. So now I can go, okay, well, let me turn on. Again, let's think about what we said thus far. I want to be the seller inside of a weekly downtrend, but I want to be the seller after a pullback up to go lower. right? Now, what I already know to be a fact is that we've been this low. So whatever, I don't recall the exact low here. One could determine it easily by putting a crosshair on it or whatnot. But just determine whatever that low is. The point is the value, which is roughly 35, let's call it 35.50, okay? That's not what it is, I don't believe, but still, let's just pretend for a second. So 35.50 approximately being the low that it's already made it down to. So I know that we've been there, meaning I know that we've removed all the demand and the buyers from back here. And so they have to be below this if there's any, let me say that a different way. Any unexecuted orders that were initially placed and or placed based on historical values, they're gone now down to that price point or lower. Okay, so that's a fact. There is no questioning that. So with that being said, shouldn't I go below that and look for the demand? Sure. So there's two things now that I can look for, and I can do it all on this chart based on just the zones in themselves. Number one, I already know where sellers took place previously. This was a very large sell-off. In fact, it turned from our previous supply zone, okay, and just fell away, right? But it didn't reach this lower level, which is where we wanted it to go. If you remember specifically, we said 3,500 or lower, but that's because you remember we were looking at it on a monthly chart. So that was where I anticipated price to go, and it still could absolutely get there. But so that's what I'm looking for. Yeah. Anyway, so here I'm saying, okay, well, look, there's a zone below. That's where a load of buyers took place before. So the likely scenario is that when we arrive back there, we're going to find more future support around that 33.47. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. Now I need to get there. Number one, I can sell supply, but where do I sell supply? Do I sell supply down here after we've made a lower low? No. I want to sell supply up above, right? So when we pull back up, remember earlier we were talking about the Fibonacci analysis in combination with the channels and the support lines and so on. That's how we determine where we want to be the buyer or seller, both or neither. Okay. In this case, we wanted to be the seller until we got down here and we stopped. We did not want to be the seller anymore. Although we believed it could go lower, we also know that this is as low as it could go last time, right? So anything below that could bring in new temporary buyers, okay? So it's pretty important, I would say. All right, so now I take my zone here, and then I go, okay, well, if I'm looking to sell into that, I need to get down here. I go over here to my secondary menu, and I turn on my supply levels, all right? So now, in the downside move, if I pull back to my supply levels, what does that mean? Well, it means now I've met entry for another potential move to the downside. And these are big moves. Again, these are weekly charts, but what I'm doing is attempting to enter them on the smaller time frame. Okay? So the first zone that I see now, outside of the one that we just had, of course, right? So we're turning from one right now. We had to make that adjustment to the structure on the high there. Actually, let me just go show you that so you're aware of it, right? So this is where we are right now, okay? This was the zone. It became historical, right? So if you remember, we had this zone right here. So our stop, there's our zone, of course, and then our stop just below, in this case, just above. So stop being just above that structure. Anyway. All right. Now, why did we say no? Remember what we talked about yesterday? No, I wouldn't want to be selling these down here. Remember, I said the exact opposite. I said it's probably going to have a pretty sharp rally given the information that we got, just yesterday and so on and so forth. So that makes sense to take these out. They're too close to the lows. Remember, we said that over here. Took out the lows. They're down below where the demand could step back in. So we don't want to be selling these. We want to wait for it to rally up into a higher supply zone, preferably even higher. The 39.05 is the next one that we're going to come to. Okay. All right. Anyway, so we'll go back over here, and we can see that on this chart. So remember I told you 39.05. So that's just the next zone that we're coming to, that zone having already been tested, however. So then just above that, 39.45, we have an excellent zone, meaning that it's never been tested. I know that because of the color. You see the difference? This one is so the opacity is lower. This one is more of a solid color. So each time we test them, as you know, it becomes lighter and lighter. So that's how I know that zone's not been tested. I could go in and look further and, you know, really get granular and see that it's not been tested if you wanted to do that. But the whole purpose is to simplify this and not to need to put in all of that work. Efficiency, time efficiency, right? So now I know, okay, good, I'm ready and I'm willing to be a seller if we get up into these areas above, with the potential that we would go back down, not only to the lows, but may even go all the way down to this lower demand level. So now let's look at it a different way, because we've already kind of solidified that, right? That's pretty much done. So let's go here and let's turn off the supply zones, and now let's say, okay, but what if we get down here and I wanted to be the buyer? Then I need to go turn on my demand zones, all right? Now, if you see, we came within, you know, a few, maybe a point or so of this demand zone, and we, you know, turned up abruptly. That's pretty abrupt. But anyway, we didn't quite touch the zone, okay? Try to remember what I just said, or that I have said throughout the session. Anytime we get below this low, inside of the current downtrend, we've already arrived here. So when I get below this, I know that each of these zones down here are likely going to produce a little bit of a bounce, and or it could be a huge one, could even be a reversal, all right? But I know that overall, the big turn took place from the lower area, which is to say the weekly zone. So these, even in themselves, could produce bounces, etc., but these are counter trend scenarios and much more aggressive. So let's now say, you know what, I'm willing to do that on the downside. Why? Because my trend is down. And as the saying goes, the trend is our friend, right? Yes, of course it is. Love the trend. So I don't want to go against it, all right? If I'm going to go against it, I want ample amounts of information to make me feel real warm and cozy inside, okay? So there's a feature here that what we can do is go in and turn off what we call the internal zones, all right? I suppose it's the nomenclature there. Maybe I should call these external zones. But anyway, I'm just kind of joking with myself there. So the point that I'm trying to make, though, internal zones means, are they inside of the primary zones? Okay, and it could go inverse too. Like, for example, if I switched up these time frames, I could change this one to minute, 240, and change this one to default, right? I mean, you're going to get the same thing. You did different color scheme, but you'd ultimately get the same thing. So I can also control the internal zones from over here as well. That's the point that I'm trying to make to you, okay? So I can turn those off that you see up here, right? So it can be accommodated by both of the menus. It just depends on what time frame you'd want. All right, excellent. I'm going to refresh here, make sure we have everything. Still have our secondary zones. Excellent. So now, again, if I'm going with the trend, I could say, well, yeah, I'm willing to take those. If I'm going against the trend, I could say no, 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 yes, right? But it still looks a little bit messy, and therefore it could create a little bit of a problem for me, and that's to say it could give me emotions, right? Because when I'm dropping down and I see it hitting one of those zones, I have an immediate reaction, right? Whether I want to or not, it's kind of like, oh, but this one might work, or this, I don't want to miss it if this one's going to work, and so on. So again, it's just the whole purpose here is to try to remove unnecessary decision making, if you will. So now I'm increasing the chances of a bounce and or potential reversal, because now I'm including two different time frames: weekly, which as we know is enormous, and 4 hour. Please remember, I'm just using this for example. We could also have this on a 60-minute and a 3-minute, right? It doesn't matter what the time frames are. That's how I could do it. theoretically. In this case, literal, but you could have a theory based on any time frames you want. It could be the weekly and the 480-minute chart, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. You can accommodate that just by changing the settings. Okay? So I'm not trying to say this is the only way to do it. I'm trying to just give you information that may or may not help. But once you get into, as you know, once you go through our course, you get the information, you learn how we do things, you start to realize, man, this kind of simplifies everything that I need to see in regards to price action. Okay? All right, so a good thought process for myself is I am willing to do things if the larger picture trend is in favor. Okay? In other words, if it agrees with me, sure. If it disagrees, however, I'm less likely to make a decision that would disagree with that. All right? I'm definitely going to be less likely, because it's lower probability in my opinion. So what I'm saying is, if I'm in a weekly downtrend, I'm more apt to take, sorry for the noise in the background, just pay no attention. So if I'm in a weekly downtrend, I'm more apt to take more aggressive sell positions, right? If I'm in a weekly uptrend, I'm more apt to take aggressive buy scenarios, and that's to say I can go to the smaller time frame and do it. But if I'm going against it, weekly downtrend, but I'm buying, well, of course I want to feel better about that decision, because then I have to question, what am I doing? Am I trying to catch the bottom? Am I, in other words, trying to, how they say, not many folks can catch the bottoms or tops, and that's like, I would strongly disagree with that, but that's neither here nor there. I think it's a matter of opinion in what you consider a top or bottom, to actually be. And as you all know, you see us do it all the time. I mean, would you consider selling the market there, catching the top? I would. And I mean, that's exactly what we did, right? You saw it a day in advance. Same up here, right? And not at the very top. It was somewhere right around and through here. But the point is, it can be done, but by definition, did we really catch the top right here? No, we did not. We didn't catch the absolute top, sure, but I mean, we caught it right there, right close to the turning point. So it's a matter of opinion, I suppose. It's just playing the swings in the market. It can be done, but it takes a lot of effort. And I guess you'd have to decide, is it worth it to you, All right, meaning to put in that much effort. All right, so what questions do you have thus far about multiple time frame zones? Or we can also do it at your request if there's something you want to put it on and see how that functions on corresponding market or time frames. I have no problem doing that. Give me just a second. Let me get to you guys can post in your questions. Let's see. Can we backtest an intraday chart also and check? Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So that's a great question. Thank you, Babu. Yeah, you can. So every zone, everything. I would say this is a very important point, distinction of our software, if you will. Everything in our software is back testable, right? So we store all of the historical information so that it can be back tested. Yes, most definitely. And again, not only can you see that, but you can see where it was tested. You can see where it was tested the second time, third time, things like that. Anything and everything. Yes, you can definitely do that. Great question, right? Like I could go back and say, what happened. I mean, I'm exaggerating it, but if I wanted to go back 10 years, for example, I could. You just want to be very mindful of your data load, okay? So if I were going to go back 10 years and I'm trying to load intraday bars, I mean, we have to be extremely realistic about that. I would not encourage people to take 1 minute charts back, more than a month, for example. That is a lot of data. It's a lot of calculations. Our software will do it. I I mean, I'd be happy to show you that, but you're going to get a little bit of a lag in your load time. So let's say, for example, let's say, well, there's 30 days, right? And let's say I wanted to load it on a 1-minute chart, okay? So you see right here, that's how fast it is. I mean, it's super fast and super efficient. There's never been a piece of software, anything close as far as our load times, meaning that, you know, anything remotely close to our software, supply and demand zones and so on. I've actually tested that a bunch of times, and I always love putting it to the test. But that's how fast it can do it. I'm not saying it can't do it. I'm just trying to say, you know, don't do something silly like this. Like if I wanted to go and, you know, let's say I wanted to load 100 days, right? I mean, it could take a little bit of time for it to load that, because you're asking it to load 1-minute bars, 100 days worth of it, and calculate every single one of them, right? So it's overkill. It can be done. So if you're back testing, though, sure, you can absolutely do that. Just make sure that you're prepared to give it a moment to load, right? And don't go out jumping and doing all this other stuff. Be realistic about it. If I wanted to go back way back in time, you know, I can go up to my other time frames. For example, on a 4-hour chart here, right? I'm going to do something crazy. If I wanted to load 1,000 days, you see how fast that just happened? That's 1,000 days, guys and gals. I mean, that's a lot of time. But I did it on a 4-hour chart, right? So there's a little bit more. Anyway, I think you see where I'm going with that, but I think I had 200 days loaded. It doesn't really matter. And the same thing over here. Like, you can see what's already loaded. 1,000 days, but, you know, I could go, I could easily go 3,000 days. I forget how much, you know what? It's not going to load this. Yeah, it's not going to load because it doesn't go back that far. You don't even have 3,000 days, right? In other words, the micro, I could do it on the E-mini, but the micro E-mini doesn't exist at that point, 3,000 days ago. So it's newer than that. Okay, good question. Thank you, sir. Do you have 2 time frames on the chart to use do you have to have, 2 time frames to use the internal zone function? When I adjust 1 time frame, all the zones disappear when I turn off the internal zones. Right, because what are they internal of, right? So if you think about this from a logical standpoint, you're essentially saying you turn on, let's say, 4-hour zones, but then you're essentially saying, hey, only show me zones that are inside of another time frame zone. Well, another time frame doesn't exist, so therefore none of your zones exist because none of them are inside of anything, right? So yeah, that logically makes sense. Make sure you have that on. Just go to your zone controls and turn them on. Yeah, very good. Thank you for asking that. All right, any other questions? I like that. I've always noticed 3-minute zones inside of 60-minute zones work often. Yeah, so I mean, we can certainly go look at that. Let's look at one of the features here real quick. So if I'm doing all of this stuff, okay, like right now is a great example of it. I'm just making all these changes just to show stuff, or maybe I'm testing things out or doing this or doing that. The beauty in this is there's this nice little button here, Reset Template, and it goes right back to the original version, okay? Unless you go change the template, you know, in which case it would revert back to whatever template you've saved and reloaded. But as long as you don't do that and you just make any changes from the chart and you hit that reset template, it's going to go back to the template in which you've loaded. In this case, it's the default template. So you were asking, let me go back to let me put this on the daily here for a second. All right. Let's see. It's interesting. Watch. Oh, hold on just 1 second. Thought I saw. So you can see price moving a little bit more abruptly here. What just happened? Was there news? Give me just 1 second, folks. What did we just have? So it is 10 a.m. Oh, yeah, PMI. Yep, PMI. Okay. It came, I don't know what it was yet. So it beat the forecast. Okay. Be mindful. Positive news these days, not so much positive. All right. Yeah. All right. So we're coming down just real quick, folks. I just want to bring your attention to this. Please remember what I said yesterday. Okay? What did I need to see? All right? Now I'm going to watch over here. This is where I want to watch. All right? So basically right now I want to get my RVR at the RVM. We could drop a little bit more, however. Ideally we would drop a little bit more, I should say. But suffice to say we're pulling back pretty well. So now I just want to wait for my RVR at the RVM over here. Okay. All right. Yeah. We'll come back to that because it's not going to happen for just a little while. Okay. All right. You'll find support down here. See it right here? And again, this is why I like that price line. See how it shows you where you're trading. So it's going to hit this previous resistance becoming support right here around that 37.50, but ultimately it could go a lot lower. So just be prepared, folks. Be prepared. Let me see. Give me just 1 second. I'm thinking on something. It's very difficult for me to do all this I'm trying to do the education. I'll have to deal with it in a little bit. Where did I leave off? You wanted to look at the hold on. Okay, 3 and 60. So here, so remember I'm about to load 3-minute zones, right? So let's try like 50 days. Let's go to a 60-minute chart. Okay, and then you wanted to see 3-minute zones. I like that. So I'm going to go into my settings. I'm going to go to secondary zones. I'm going to load minute 3. Okay, and I'm going to click left click, excuse me, apply. Oh, haha, will probably help if you enabled them. My bad. There we go. Don't forget to do that. Kind of important. All right, here we have it. So now, let me show you something else. Another little tidbit here. Okay, in the zones, you see this top thing here? Well, I can't see anything over here. That's because it's hiding. All right, now I can see them. So what I just did was I took the smaller time frame zones and I put them on top of the larger time frame zones, right? So this is a smaller time frame, but yet I can see it. Smaller time frame, I can see it. I can open this up and I can get, pretty granular with this stuff. There we go. So I have 1, 2, 3 3-minute zones inside of the 60-minute zone. So watch this. Okay. Now I can go to my zone controls and just turn off the other ones. So if it's not inside of a zone, I don't meaning inside of a large time frame zone, I don't necessarily need to see that. Okay. So I just cleaned up the chart. That's all. Right. Just cleaning up the chart. 37.45, there is a zone there, of course, right? But note the color difference. So let me do this. Okay, now I can see the zones by themselves, and I know that those are zones inside of larger time frame zones. Okay, so again, there's a boatload of stuff you can do and achieve here, this just being some of them. Anyway, you have this 3745 zone, but I just want to remind you, this zone has been not only tested, but almost entirely removed here. So the 37, this lower level, so basically these are very small time frame zones, right? So if I wanted to get a balance, I'd ultimately just combine these two levels right there, okay? It's possible that it bounces out of this level, but given the opacity there, it's just not a level of interest, okay? All right. Let's see. And was wondering about how to do that. So does that make sense? Travis, does that kind of answer your question as far as how to get the zones to accommodate what you're looking for? Excellent. Yeah, of course. You're very welcome. Yes, very nice. We're hitting the 23.6 retracement you were saying. I believe, who was saying that? Travis, that might have been you. Yeah, 38.2 is a little bit lower. Very good. The intraday chart is hitting new lows and the indicators seems to readjust. How can I determine my exit if I had short at 37.70? I mean, it's a very loaded question there, my friend. So based on the zones, I could use the zones, right? I can't answer your question if I don't have the information, is what I'm trying to say. So you're saying, how could I determine my exit, but I have no idea even what your entry was. I mean, I know the value, you said 37.70, but why? What time frame? You know, there's a bunch of things. I would have to have entered that. So what time frame did you enter short? Let me just start there. So we're going to, you know, remember, being this is for educational purposes only. Do not go make any adjustments based on what I say. This is just, you know, what I would utilize in the methodology, right? I understand you're saying, but the last candle of what? Of what time frame? Are you telling me that you just literally hit you just entered a sell position just because you got a break of a low candle? Oh, no. That's not how we would ever do this, Babu. No. We would never do that, right? That's oof, you're a brave soul, let me tell you that. I hope you do really well with it. So I don't mean to, I'm not trying to degrade the way that you're doing that. I'm saying, but you have to have more of a reason, and it's just not understood by me, that's all. So you're either educated in the way that you do it, and I'm not. For whatever reason, though, but I can tell you we would never do that. Just because we break a random candle low, that is not even remotely close to giving us a position to do anything. What we would look for, we would have been short here, right? So we have the software is printing this for us, okay? So if I were going to sell, I would have done it way up here. Okay, and then to answer now I can answer that question. Let me say it that way. If I sold the market there, then I can just go close it out before the opposing zone, right? But there's also, I mean, even that is a loaded question because I don't know anything about your trading time frame. So ask me specific questions, I give you very specific answers. But when I get vague, it's just because I don't have enough information. So that's when I like to walk through the actual if-thens, because I can be very specific about that, right? So for all intensive purposes, oh, I'm already on that chart. Okay, so over here, right? Remember we talked about this from yesterday. This area up here, it made sense that we would sell off from it, right? But ultimately, we're more interested, I know this is ironic, but more interested in the buy side of the equation. So the lower that we get, if we make a lower low, I've been looking to that 3,500 and below myself. If we get down there, I'm basically looking for this picture that we just got yesterday. So that's option number one. But again, let's say that we took a short position here for whatever reason. So your reason was a bar low. Okay, again, that would never be our reason, but sure. And also depends on the time frame in which you entered. So I believe you said that you entered based on this bar, which was a 60-minute chart. Okay, so if I did that, I would look for the opposing zone. So I need to turn that back on, don't I? Okay, so it would be the demand. And I just want to this is why we don't do stuff like that, because you took a short position, and it's great. I mean, obviously it's moved down, but this is one of those times where I'll tell you, if you can make this work over a 5-year period, let me know. I would be very impressed. Not that that matters or anything. I'm just saying that would be amazing. I don't think you will, but we'll see. Let me know if you can. The reason I don't think that is because, in this case, look at what you just sold right into, right? Now, the markets are in turmoil, and they're insane right now, so it's very possible, and so on and so forth. But you hit the sell button literally as we're coming right down into an hourly demand level, okay? So that's why we would never do things like that. If I were going to do it, it'd be after the up move as we start to roll over, not as we're already moving down. So remember what we talked about, buy low, sell high? You just sold low. I mean, not literally. That's a subjective question, being buy low, sell high. But if you're moving down and you're hitting the sell button, that is kind of definitively the opposite of what we would want to do. Okay? I hope that makes sense. And again, I don't mean to, I hope you're not taking any offense to what I'm saying. I'm only telling you that I'm uneducated in what you're doing. Okay? And it's definitely never something that we would do. But that doesn't make it wrong. Okay? For sure. You may be a rock star, and I don't know it, I mean, you could be doing very well. If you are, congratulations. Like I said, this will move down, but I just want you to see why it stopped, right? So you sold a break of a low right into demand. So if I were going to, if there were some more distance here for all intents and purposes, and I had an entry, like this one right here would have been this would have been an entry, okay? Now if I sold the market here, my target, and or shall I say my trigger line, that's when we would execute a break-even plus commissions, just protecting it, right? Moving the stop to break-even plus commissions, this is what I'm talking about. I would use this opposing level to do that. So when we come down here, basically the time you were entering short is the time that I would have been protecting my short, if that makes any sense, okay? So that's it. Now, a lot of people would use this as a target. So if I am a short-term trader and all I want to do is day trade, I would have sold the market here, I would have bought it back right here, right? So where you were selling, I would have been buying. Not to buy and open a position, but to buy to close the position. That's if I'm a scalper. I'm not. I'll just be very clear about that. So the way that I typically handle these things is I would sell the market here, get down here, protect that investment, and then I'd go to my larger time frame, right? I'd go over here and say, where's the next area? Oh, okay, 36, let's call it 36.70, specifically 36.69.50. Cool. So now I'm protected in this investment, hypothetically. There's really, no way for it to go against me. Cool. So my profit target is all the way down here at 37.10, something like that. Okay? No, I'm sorry. No, not what I meant to say. Let's call it 36.75. Yeah. In other words, it's not a perfect, you don't have to be perfect about it, just above this, right? Like right before we get there. I don't want to come into it. I want to exit just before we get there. So now I've set myself up for a huge move to the downside, potentially. May or may not get it, but that's what I've set myself up for. That's the way I do it. Everyone's a little different, to each his own and all that good fun stuff. But I hope that helps. Okay, let me see. Let me get some things off my my screens. Watch this. Yeah, it's coming into that. Okay, there you go. By the way, watch. You see what just happened? Watch those zones, okay? So remember what I said about these zones. That's at 37.45, and I told you, we could get a bounce there, right? But that level is very questionable. So remember, I don't go in and just trade every level, but suffice to say, you are watching them in real time, as you should. Look over here. You'll see it's amazing, these levels. But I mean, don't take my word for it. You can ask anyone who has the software, right? But just watch the zones. These zones have already been used up, right? That one. This is a 1 minute chart, by the way, not a 3. So these are different zones that you're seeing. But you can also see that even on a 1 minute chart, that same area down there, those zones have not been tested. Now, you see what just happened again? Look at it. It dropped to the next zone, and you see it stop immediately. It stops, right? So look at what's happening at our zones. And this is how accurate they really are. It's kind of astonishing, in my opinion. Not alone, but I can't speak for you. You see what happened when it touched that zone? That's a pretty big rally, right? You see what happened when it touched this zone? It stopped and bounced a little bit, almost nothing, but it did bounce. This one is amazing to me. There you go. Look at what's happening right now. It touches it to the tick, and then you see where I'm going with this? It's pretty cool. But this one's amazing to me because that zone, I always thought that it was going to get broken. In fact, I told you that, right? But do you see what's happening in real time? This is how our zones function, right? It's just what it is. It's real time. You can put it on your chart, see, and just sit there and watch them. It is amazing. But the difference is I want to stick with the direction as opposed to continuously trying to take every little zone I see. I don't want to do that. I want to add, some probability into my favor. So you can see it over here, the 3 minute zone, right there. It touches it to the tick. Like I told you before, I said watch that zone there, and then it starts to kind of rally away. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So again, you can see this zone right there. It literally touched it to the tick. So it's interesting, but seeing is believing, as I've always said, and will always continue to say. All right, very good. Is the timing, in parentheses, the entry, or time in the markets, smaller time frame versus higher time frame, that will bring success in your trading? I will never answer a question like that, Jay. Let me explain why. Okay, that would be false on my part, right? It would be. No, let me give you a different. It would be misleading. Okay, my friend, I can't tell you if you're going to be successful or not. I can tell you that it is very, 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 very difficult. So I don't know. Maybe, but you can just watch what we do, and then you can see how it works for us. But I never take on questions like that other than to answer them with the simple fact that I wouldn't do that to you. That would be misleading and otherwise just unacceptable. Okay? I wish I could, but there's no one in the world that should ever tell you if you're going to be successful or not. Not only in trading, though, that's with anything, because it's all about the work that you put in. Are you emotional? Are you an emotional person? Do you feel that you could, handle the market movement? I mean, it's a fickle pickle. So I don't know. You have to determine that first. But you can, again, seeing is believing. So as far as what our methodology does, I wouldn't do it if it didn't work, right? So you just have to watch it and see what it does for us. But that's about all I can say in regards to that. Appreciate your understanding. I still don't understand the question. I was referring to entries. I don't quite understand the question. So you're saying, is the timing, let me just, because you put a couple things in parentheses, let me read it a different way. Is the entry or time in the markets, is it the entry or time in the markets that will bring success in trading? Again, I can't answer that question. I'm going to have to leave that one alone, my friend. Let me ask your next question. when you say you're referring to entries, is it timing or time in the markets that will help with entries, something like that? I don't know what the question really is, and I apologize for that. My opinion on the matter is quite simple. Not on success whatsoever, because as I said, I can't. There's no way I can do that. By the way, keep your eyes peeled over here. You see what's happening in real time? It's not rocket science here, folks. It's just the accuracy of our zones and how the common function, of supply and demand works. But so higher time frames or smaller time frames, I'm only going to answer this question one way. Okay, I prefer larger time frames always. The reason is because there's less noise, right? Think about what that is. The bigger the time frame you go means the bigger the trader usually is, right? So you're in a higher time frame, you're probably dealing with more bigger picture investors, right? So therefore more money, hypothetically, things to that extent. So I'm never going to trade without understanding what the larger time frames are doing. All I do is use the smaller time frame for execution purposes. So my analysis is always going to come from the bigger time frame. My execution is going to come from the smaller time frames, whatever my paired time frames are. But I get granular with it. Does that make sense? So I watch the bigger picture. I get my analysis. That tells me if I want to be the buyer, the seller, neither or both. And then when I get the entry signal at the right location on my smaller time frame, then I execute. Okay, that's what helps me. But again, to each his own. I just can show you. If you know our methodology, you know very well. But I can just simply sit here and show you what I know works and so on. How do these zones get drawn? Based on buy order volume, and so there is not a simple answer for that, my friend. It's very complicated, and I won't even go into it. You're referring to. I never answer questions regarding algorithms, right? For obvious reasons, I think. But suffice to say, even if I tried, there's so many. It's not one algorithm. Whew, when I tell you. The code in which this software functions on is extensive. So I can't, I wouldn't even begin to answer that question, other than to say again, it is not one algorithm. There are many algorithms that go into the calculation of the zones and the sizes and the things to that extent. Yeah, it's not a simple answer. Sorry about that. Oh, thanks. Yeah, Herb. Yeah, he's saying it works. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Pretty interesting for sure. All right, guys and gals, I kind of need to get out and do my own thing today. Some things I need to be paying attention to. So let's probably head out for the day unless you have any final questions. I'd be happy to answer them. But otherwise, I'm going to probably call it a day here. You are most welcome, my good sir. Okay. And again, if you have a quick question, that's perfectly fine. I just want to kind of leave you all with this. Remember what I said from yesterday, please. Okay? I've defined exactly, this whole scenario right here. I've already defined it. It's doing exactly what we said from yesterday, and therefore I'm going to follow through with the remainder of my analysis from yesterday. You know exactly what I'm looking for. We've already met the minimum area, so I'm pretty much good to go at this point. All right, God bless you. Have a I'm sorry. One last question. Where do you find the best liquidity? I mean, myself, the S&P 500. Yeah, pretty simple one there. S&P 500 all the way. So much. There's so much. Yeah. All right, guys and gals. God bless you. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks for your time. And let me know. You can email whatever you need. We'll be happy to help. Take care. Bye for now.